Welcome back to Chef DTV, and it's your host, Shiva speaking, and I'm just welcoming you back to Blank Screen Talk podcast, and today I'm going to be recommending some foreign movies that I've watched I think everyone should give a try. And I'm going to start this list off with The Man from Nowhere. This is a 2013, a 2010 movie from South Korea, and it's about a quiet pawn shop owner with a violent past that takes on drug and organ trafficking ring in the hope of saving the child who is his only friend. And I watched this when it was on Netflix a little while ago, and this movie was really interesting. And though it may seem like a familiar storyline that's been used quite a lot, this is a very interesting movie, and I think everyone should try and give it a watch. Though it's not on Netflix anymore, and you have to pay for it on Amazon Prime. If you can pay the money to watch it on Amazon Prime, I do recommend this movie. As well as if you can find it somewhere else or on another streaming service that has to watch it, I do recommend everyone go and give this a try. It's a very good movie, the action's good, and I love the storyline. Second is Ragnarok. Ragnarok is a Norwegian language fantasy film inspired by Norse mythology. And it's on Netflix right now. It's only season 1 currently, but it says that season 2 is supposed to be coming out soon, and I'm really looking for season 2. So what happens is Ragnarok, it is a 2020 film. It just came out last year. So it's only 6 episodes. So if you do have Netflix, give it a watch. But what happens is, it's not a real place in Norwegia, but this family moves back to Norwegia. Edda in Hordaland, Western Norway, which is plagued by climate change and industrial pollution caused by the factories owned by the local Jutal family, the 5th richest family in Norway. The Jutals are actually 4 Jotun from Frost Giants, and giantesses posing as family Edda. They are challenged by Magni, who's a teenager, the main character for this show, and he is a teenage boy who moves when they move back to Edda in Norway, that his body starts to change, and then he figures out that he's the embodiment of Thor. But when I was watching it, I thought because they mentioned Magni, they kept mentioning Magni a lot, so I thought that he wasn't the embodiment of Thor, but actually the embodiment of Thor's son Magni. And again, these movies that I'm recommending, not all of them is in standard English language, so you will have to probably read subtitles. The Man from Nowhere and Ragnarok are 2 films that I do know that you can get them dubbed. On Netflix, you can switch the audio to English as well. So just if you're not comfortable reading subtitles, you can always go on Netflix and watch it with English audio, just like The Man from Nowhere. You find a dubbed version where it's in English as well. And third on my list is Reborn. It's a Japanese film that came out in 2016, and again the storyline isn't new. So when you watch it, you're going to be survived. That is basically the usual typical revenge plot, but at the same time, this is a very interesting movie as well. And I do love the action. The action is great, and it's kind of hard to explain the plot to you. I couldn't really find anything explaining the plot correctly, but it is on Amazon Prime for free currently. With Amazon Prime, not everything stays on there for free, so we have to watch it while it's there for free before we wake up the next day and you have to pay for it. And moving on, because I really couldn't find a lot of information on Reborn to get everyone to go and watch it, but it was a really good movie, and I do think everyone can spend just a few hours to watch this movie and just take it in. And the 4th movie is Fury. It's a Vietnamese movie that came out in 2019, and it's currently on Netflix. For how long, I don't know, but everyone should go and watch it while it's there. And what happens in this movie is an ex-gangster who's estranged from her family after her family disowns her for having an affair with a gangster and getting involved with criminal activity. She gives birth to the gangster's child, and she decides to go and give up the gangster life and live a quiet life somewhere else, but she is struggling with money and everything, though she's trying to not make her child see that side of her and raise her properly. So she lives as a kind of a loan collector in Vietnam, until one day she's at the market with her family, her and her daughter basically, and her daughter is kidnapped by child traffickers, And again, it's a plot that's probably been used in other movies that you've watched. But I love the spin on this one, and it kind of shows the mother's dedication to, or a mother's dedication to what they would do and the extremes they would go to get their child back. So, like I was saying, it is currently on Netflix, so do go and give it a try. And another film that I'm going to talk about is another South Korean movie. It's called The Revenger. It's on Netflix at the moment, I think, the last time I checked. But it's about an island of prisoners, basically, where, instead of keeping them on mainland, you do something bad and then you're shipped off to this island, and this island is full of criminals. So what it's about is a former police investigator decides to go to a prison island to get revenge for his family that was burned alive. And yeah, this movie is very interesting. I love the action, and I love it's very, how do I explain it? It's just very, I really don't know how to explain it. But yeah, it's just a very interesting movie and an interesting take. Like, could you imagine an island full of criminals? But as the name says, it is Revenger. It's another revenge movie. So you can expect a lot of action and a lot of kind of relationship building between the character that gets himself set there and a certain faction of people that are there trying to avoid the more dangerous people on the island. And the sixth movie that I'm going to be talking about is a Filipino movie that came out in 2019 called Maria. And it's about a female assassin who quits and fakes her death. Her old boss finds out that she's still alive and she's gotten a family, and he tries to kill them, and she responds. And this is a very good this is a very good action movie. There's a lot of action, almost from start to finish. There's a certain extent of like emotional attachment that they try and build between you and the character, trying to get you to feel what she's feeling, or just trying to get you to feel every emotion that's happening from no spoiler. This is a spoiler, but her child and husband do die, and they kind of do a great job of trying to hammer that pain into you as a viewer, so you feel her anger and pain as she's going through this roller coaster of revenge and stuff, get back at her old gang basically. But yeah, it's on Netflix now as well, and yeah, just give it a watch. And then another Netflix movie that I'm going to be talking about right now is The Night Comes For Us. It's an Indonesian movie that came out in 2018, and it's about Ito, a gangland enforcer caught amidst a treacherous, violent insurrection within his crime triad. Upon his return home from a stint abroad. That's a very, very, not a very specific summary, but it's very kind of squashed together summary in a way. It doesn't really explain fully what the movie is about, but it is another action movie. And to explain it in terms that since I've watched it, it's about Ito. He's working for the Triads, and he's at this village where they're killing everybody, and he's supposed to kill this little girl, but he chooses not to. And then the movie kind of takes off from there because the Triad's trying to kill the girl, and at the same time they're trying to kill him. So it's about him trying to protect this child as well as himself, and then it also has Iko Uwais. If you know him, he's an Indonesian actor. He comes in a lot of action movies, and if you haven't seen him, he comes in Wu Assassins on Netflix. If you have watched it, you know who he is. Or if you've watched Star Wars, I think it's like the fifth one or something. I'm not too good with the Star Wars timeline since I've only watched it like once or twice, so I'm not really sure how to explain to you what movies he's been in that terms. But he's in another movie that I've mentioned before, and you probably know him from there since this was a pretty popular movie when it was out on Netflix and other places. But I'll mention him again later on, as you will see. Anyway, that was The Night Comes For Us. And then Jailbreak is a Cambodian film that came out in 2017, and as the name implies, jailbreak. And it's about some police officers. They go to prison. They're not arrested for anything, but they transport a prisoner into prison. And at the same time, the prisoners escape. So it's the police versus the prisoners, and they're trying to escape at the same while trying not to die and protect the suspect that they brought into the jail cell. And it's an action movie. It's very good action, sometimes funny, but pretty crazy. It kind of reminds you of The Raid, if you've watched The Raid again, because it's about them storming a building filled with criminals and they're trying to escape. Moving on, the Ip Man franchise, 1 through 4, from 2008 to 2019. I absolutely love these movies. I love the action. I loved everything, even though it was supposed to be kind of, the story of the instructor that taught Bruce Lee wushu. Not everything in this movie is factually accurate. I'm just gonna point out now it's not factually accurate, so don't watch it and believe that, yeah, this is what happened, because it's not what happened. It's a movie with fake events basically, but the action, the storytelling, the way it goes around, trying to develop the viewer's bond with the characters, so you kind of develop that, I care about him relationship throughout the run of the franchise, as well as certify him as, this guy's a badass. Every time he steps into the scene, he's gonna wreck somebody. Like, this person is not gonna be a challenge. He's gonna destroy them. And it has one of my favorite martial arts actors, Donnie Yen. Donnie Yen is a boss, and I recommend you to go and watch some of his movies, like The Legend of the Fist, Chen Zhen, I think it is. I'll put it at the description below if I remember the name of it while it's on Netflix showing. But I think they have the fourth one on Netflix right now. I know they had 1 through 3 at a certain point, and I'm not sure if they have the rest of them on Netflix right now. But if you can find this movie franchise, go and give it a watch. It will not be a waste of your time. And moving on from that is A Call of Heroes. Now, I have not watched this movie. I was going to watch it before I made this video, but I never had the time. So it's still on the list, and I'm still going to recommend it, though I haven't watched it myself. I'm going to make a part 2 of this video, so if I've watched it by that time, I'll make sure to update you guys on what's going on with that movie. And continuing on from The Call of Heroes, even though I haven't watched it again, like I said, I will update you guys in the part 2 once I have watched it about what the show is about. But until then, I'm going to recommend you this movie because it does sound like a very interesting movie. It has a lot of good actors in there, especially since it's been directed by Sammo Hung. So I have a lot of faith in that this movie is going to be pretty good. So even if I haven't watched it myself, I'm still recommending it because it seems like a good movie. And the next movie is a South Korean movie that came out in 2013 called The Suspect. Now, you could, like usual, you can find this on Amazon Prime, but you do have to pay for it since it's not free. And it's not on Netflix, but if you can find it somewhere else, like I mentioned before, where you can watch it for free, give it a watch because it is a really good movie. And what The Suspect is about is a betrayed North Korean soldier that basically flees from North Korea and escapes to the South, and he's living in the South for quite a long time as a taxi driver, I think, until he gets involved with a certain set of people, and it kind of leads to a bunch of different events where he's held as the suspect for killing someone in a very important position in South Korea. And the movie kind of takes off from there, and it feels a lot of action, kind of gives you Jason Bourne vibes, is what I've heard and what I've read in the comments. And kind of after watching it and reading the comments, I felt the same thing. It does have a very similar Jason Bourne vibe. It does have very similar Jason Bourne vibes, but it also has a different spin on it because of the way that Korean movies like shoot their action scenes and the way their action scenes feel compared to the usual English or Western movies that we see a lot. And then the next movie on this list, well, it's not just one movie, it's The Wolf Warrior 1 and 2. I haven't watched the first one, but I have watched the second one. The reason I haven't watched the first one is because it wasn't available on Netflix. So I kind of just saw the second one on Netflix and watched it, and that's when I wondered, is there a part 1 for this, or is this just the official name of this movie, The Wolf Warrior 2, like, because it had something at the bottom. But what the second one is about is it kind of follows events off of part 1. So I don't really know how to explain part 1, but I'm going to read the summary to you guys right now and then read the summary of part 2 and try and give you a glimpse into what part 2 is about, even though part 2 is not on Netflix anymore as well now, which is what I'm wondering why, because this is a very good action movie, a very good story, a very good cast of actors that do their job really properly with what they've been given. So the first one is a Chinese special force soldier with extraordinary marksmanship is confronted by a group of deadly foreign mercenaries who are hired to assassinate him by vicious drug lords. Now that's the first one, and that was the first Wolf Warrior movie. The second one takes place following the events of the second one. The same China's deadliest special forces officer settles in a quiet life on the sea when sadistic mercenaries begin targeting nearby civilians. He must leave his newfound peace behind and return to his duties as a soldier and protector. So this second one, I think it takes place in Africa, and it's about rebels and mercenaries, but there's also another factor that kind of puts a spin on the current summary that IMDb doesn't actually cover, because it's trying to get you to watch the movie. But do go and give this movie a watch. The actor Jingwoo is amazing, and the action in this movie is pretty damn good. And if you've watched Triple Threat, I'm sure you know who I'm talking about. And moving on, the next movie is Old Boy, the 2003 South Korean version, not the American version, because I didn't really like that one. But it's the same premise as the original movie, as the spin-off of the American version. After being kidnapped and imprisoned for 15 years, Ode Soo is released only to find that he must find his captor in 5 days. And I don't think anything sounds more interesting than that. Imagine being kidnapped off the streets for 15 years, and then after 15 years you have 5 days to find out why you were kidnapped and what happened. But during this whole movie, you know, he's trained to fight for 15 whole years inside this locked room. And I think it's most known for a corridor fight scene that takes place in the movie, where it's done in like one long sideways shot that I've seen it on YouTube, and it's a very interesting shot. If you don't know what I'm talking about, an example of this could be for the one shot done in the Daredevil TV series that when it came out in season 1 of Daredevil. Moving on from Old Boy, we have The Raid 1 and 2. Now, if you don't know the Raid movies, then you're missing out, because the action in these two movies, I think it's the most brutal action you could see in an action movie. Not something that you would see in the typical Western, Americanized, or British movies that everyone's watched. Action very rough, it's very raw, it's very gritty and very gory. They're two very good movies that do this the best, I think. And what happens is, in the first one, The Raid Redemption, a SWAT team becomes trapped in a tenement run by ruthless mobsters and his army of killer thugs. And the job of the police officer is basically go in there and get them, get back out. But as usual, it doesn't turn out like that. And they end up being stuck in the building full with a bunch of criminals. And the second one, only a short time after the first raid, Rama goes undercover with the thugs of Jakarta and plans to bring down the syndicate and uncover the corruption within his police force. And Rama is the main police officer in the raid. That he's in the first and the second one. You'll know him straight because Iko always plays Rama. So what happens in the second one, he goes undercover in a gang, like it says in the synopsis. And like I said, the fight scenes and everything in this movie, they're very gory, they're very raw, they're very kind of real. I think they tried to make it very real as possible. And Iko is an amazing martial artist, so everyone's really missing out if you haven't watched his movies and haven't watched these action scenes that the Raid do. And that is this for this video. I know that this video is very rough, very very pausey, very breathing, but it's the very first time I'm actually doing this kind of thing, so don't hesitate to leave your feedback and comments and everything in the description box below. See, I just made another mistake. Yeah, don't hesitate to leave it in the comment section below. Just tell me what you want me to improve, and I'll try my best to improve that to make this channel more entertaining for you guys. And as usual, like, share, and subscribe. And if you do subscribe, make sure you hit that notification bell so you know when I post all my videos. And I hope you enjoyed. Thank you for watching.
Okay, I used to be up to no good, hey. Now I got all of these shows booked, okay. Now I'm the man in my whole hood, damn, hey. Think I'm doing pretty well, pretty well. I used to be up to no good, hey. Now I got all of these shows